All right. So we actually have already started this, Jeremy. Just kind of give everybody a real introduction real quick. So this is, I mean, really, this is day one of our off-grid test. If you don't know what we're referring to, had a video that we did last night. We started our off-grid test 7 a.m. this morning, where literally there is no grid coming to the house whatsoever. The whole house notified us. Savant notified us of this, and so this is our, I guess, our impression after about what 18 hours, something like that. So this is our impression after 18 hours to see what it's been like, and we started having a really good conversation about it because it is pretty cool going through this experience. Uh, I don't know what catch me up. What were we talking about? 'Cause I just want to make sure other people got to share what we were talking
Yeah, I mean, I was mentioning how it was really cool that you set up the modes at different percentages, optionally, and we did set up a few for that, and then whenever it got to the battery percentage, it automatically switched over. And then we were out for dinner and it switched over to a mode where like the game room, went off. Um, and we were going to play some pool once we got back home. And my wife was like, oh, well, like, the light's not coming on in here. I was like, oh yeah, it's the mode that I have set. Hold on. Let me just, switch that. And it was super easy to just, switch it back to turn the circuit on. So it was nice how easy and user friendly the whole interface was to be able to go because I can imagine how difficult it could have been, and it wasn't any of that. And especially with my wife, just like, hey, I wish we had power for the game room.
about. Right, exactly.
Okay, boom, just switch it and it starts working. It could have been a lot more challenging from my side.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, you have to go back in your garage. You got to start turning off some breakers and figure out which breaker is which. And had this been a real, off-grid scenario where we're not simulating it, I mean, in every sense, as far as what we're doing, it is like it's off-grid because your system does not have any power available other than solar and battery.
Yep.
But if you were manually doing the loads, you'd be out there. All right, is this the right one? Is this the right one? And then what you'd have to do is you have to go back out there and turn it back off, and
Yeah, and
a
I,
lot
and
of
I
lot of
will
work.
say one thing that is really nice that I like about the Savant system. So I originally had it set at like 70 or 75 something whenever it turned off the game room. Well, once we got back home and we wanted to use those breakers, I turned it on and then I was like, actually, I don't think I want it at 75 or 70. I want it, a little bit lower than that so that we can still utilize those rooms. And it was super easy. Just go into that scene, change the percentage where that scene kicks in and save it. And then boom, it's good to go.
Exactly, exactly. So, well, I mean, the good thing is tonight we're going to, and this is what you're doing. You just, you're adjusting the screws. We had an idea of what we wanted last night. Now we're adjusting the screws a little bit and kind of getting a little bit closer to what we want. And you're seeing what an off grid situation is literally going to be like. And so I know we have some other surprises as well. What we wanted to do was, I guess there was a concern on your part about going into storm mode, the storm watch mode inside of Savant. Its initial is what we call clean backup, which means it only uses clean sources to charge the batteries. We were already at 15% the other night. So you didn't think you're going to get enough PV, you weren't going to get enough solar to get that battery where you wanted by Saturday morning. And so we had a grid charge on the battery, and there's a couple of things that we have to do with that. We'll probably end up going over that tomorrow night because we have some other objectives today to take advantage of. But it just knowing that you have those options, right? And I for me, and I love the Solar-Ark offering. I think, of course, we're going to talk about that a little bit tonight. There's really nothing that I've seen cover a home like a Solar-Ark can, but it is not for the lay person. The settings on that and the menus and what each one means and how it works. I mean, it's another level.
Oh, I I'll put a caveat on what you just said.
Sure, go ahead.
I think it is for the lay person. Like it's pretty user friendly. and it can do what it's set up to do without much effort. The thing that I like about it, a maybe not
No,
layperson,
you're not. You're yeah.
is having the ability to get all of the details and the fine tuning and being able
Yep.
to go and tweak all of those things, which I love. Like, I got this awesome system, and if I can't, play with it and tweak it and have it do exactly what I want it to do, it somewhat defeats the purpose in my mind.
Right. Well, and what I mean by that is, with Savant, we already have the profiles. So if you
Hmm.
want to control something, you want to put yourself, okay, well, I'm just going to do a storm watch. Boom, it's a button. Storm watch is there. You're good. In order to do that with Solar-Ark, you're probably 4 or 5 different menus. You're doing different things there.
Yep. Yep.
Again, it comes with the load management, and so it's really nice to be able to have the access, like you're talking about, the access to that level of control, but to be able to utilize it with the simplicity of the Savant. That's, again, that integration is really what makes it special. So your first impressions of a simulated blackout today? I mean, you went through your whole day. I did see. You want to go ahead and share your screen if you don't mind for the. Let's do the Savant Pro because it's going to show basically what you did throughout the day.
Okay.
And this is, I mean, I don't know if you see the screen that I'm sharing, but this is basically your system. I've been checking it out all day, making sure that we are, getting everything that we're expecting. The generator error, all that is because we do not use the Savant or the Solar to do the regular maintenance schedule. We're using the
Yeah.
generators for the regular maintenance schedule
Yeah.
instead. So it's saying, hey, I don't have control of this, but that's a good thing. We want Kohler to handle that schedule.
Yeah, which is a good thing to note because at first we had them both on
Right.
without thinking about it, and I was getting like 2 tests a month with the generator itself testing, to make sure that it was good, and then Savant would kick off. What it was it
It was
Savant?
Solar. No, it was
Solar,
Solar.
Solar. Yeah. The Solar system would kick off a test as well. And I was like, huh, I felt like it just tested itself. Why is it doing that? So, it was good to recognize that and be able to tune it to exactly what we want, which is just one, test, and ideally it being the generator itself because it,
Exactly, because it's going to keep the schedule and everything inside of it.
yeah,
So all right, yeah, you're. I'll wait for you to share screen on
yeah.
this. But yeah, there are a couple things that I was noticing here as well.
Okay.
All right,
Should
so
be good.
I don't know why I see this on. Okay, we'll expand here. There we go. All right, so let's go ahead and go down a little bit. I want to show a couple of things that I noticed that happened throughout the day. We should have a little timestamp with a lot of the things that ended up changing. Yeah, those are my just there. So then go to view all. There we go. So, one thing that I noticed this morning, right? So if you scroll down a little bit more, a little after 7 a.m., right? It's 7:36. We had our grid outage detected. So we have our, oh, you just got no notice. Did you notice that?
Yep, yep.
Yeah, so that's fine. I'll show you how to manually put something back. But yeah, so we have our grid outage that happened at 7:39, and then of course we had the initial grid down that we had discussed. But we both knew that you were basically going to have an abundance of power today, especially during the day, because you were going to get a good production. So that all on, I mean, it looked like it lasted you, I mean, a great part of the day. I guess 5 o'clock when you started seeing your production, your PV production go down is when
Yeah.
you manually switched that, right? That wasn't something the system did.
No, I think it was something the system did.
Okay, so you must. Well, I think we have that. Did we have it set at 90? Or what was it that was the trigger for that? Do you remember?
I think it might have been 90.
Okay, okay. So yeah, I guess I know that's when the production from solar started going down a little bit because almost half your system is facing east. And so with
Mhm.
half your system facing east at 5 o'clock, you're not getting a whole lot of east sun at that point. But I mean, you were 9 hours almost, right?
Yeah.
Of all on. So your family did not know at all for 9 hours that you guys were totally off grid.
Yep.
Go ahead. And then so when it switched, what were like the things that you noticed when it switched to that at 5:02, that grid down scene? What I know the pool cuts off
Yep.
and a
And
couple other things. Like what did the family notice? Of course, you
no
do your
one
pictures.
noticed anything. So whenever we, set up this scene, it was like cut off the things that don't really matter.
Right.
Initially, it's the pool and then some utility circuits. And so whenever it went into that mode, no one noticed anything, which is exactly what I was hoping for. So,
Exactly. Because you're able to shave, but nobody notices the shave. And so they are, I mean, just fully functional. So
yeah.
that's excellent. So at 7:15, you hit into second stage, which means you're about 2 hours almost in that first one. Second stage was when the game room went down. Is that
Mhm.
right? So that's
Correct.
where people started to notice is like, hey, but you had that percentage of 75%, which by the way, when you said it 75% last night, I kind of expected this, to be honest with you. So I'm like, man, that's pretty high.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
but no, I see what I mean. You were there for what 2 or 3 hours, and then I see the all on.
Yep. I went all on and then I was like, wait, I don't really need all on. I can go to the initial grid down mode where a few of the breakers that we definitely don't, care about turned off. And so I set it there. And then the second stage just turned on. So if you don't mind, I'm gonna go back and change the mode back to initial grid
So
down.
so actually, I wanted to wait for a second to see that change on. Let's go to message. Let's do something else.
Okay.
Okay, go to your top consumers button here,
Okay.
right there. You can turn them back on manually, so you're not turning the whole profile on and wasting that extra power. So if you were to go down right there, you're going to see your game
So
room.
this one unfortunate thing about the app, sometimes it shows everything as off, even though it's not off.
It's not right now. So if you go down,
So like it's even showing the dryer is pulling, like 5 kilowatts, but it says off.
right,
Usually this is switched on and it shows exactly how much is being pulled.
and sometimes those profiles do that. But if you find your game room, you're going to be able to turn it on right here.
So I might be able to, but I think the app is just in a weird state, so I'm actually going to close it.
Because it's switching. Yeah, it's switching back and forth right now. And so some of that data does have a lag. And if you go out of top consumers and come back into it, you'll see it. But
I find it does it sometimes,
boom, there it is.
except for not fully.
Right, right. So if you want to go ahead and turn the game on real quick, if you don't want to use this part of it, and go change that profile real quick to first stage. Yep, that's where we have to go to the other scenes. You're in the wrong scenes area.
Oh,
Yep,
yeah.
you gotta go up. Yep,
Yep. I thought I was up at the top here.
yep, no worries. There you go.
And let's do this guy.
Extra go down. Yep. Boom. We're
And there we
back
go.
on.
That's it.
Yep, game room. The only thing that's off right now is the pool, and of course you can change that back. Now something else you probably did notice, but I want to highlight for some other folks, right? If you look at the dashboard, the energy dashboard, estimated 22 hours and 9 minutes. Go back up. In this mode, gotta go back up. You may have gone up a little bit too much. Oh, keep going up a little more. All right, right there. Go up a little more. Right there. Estimated
Uh-huh.
19 hours, 49 minutes.
Yep.
So two things happen. As you change your profile and as certain devices, certain breakers cut on, that number will adjust. And so, you talk about tuning the screws a little bit. You can manually turn on certain things or manually put on certain profiles, okay, certain energy scenes, and it will tell you what's there. So what's happened is because you turn initial grid down back on, and we've had something, it can't be the pool, but we did have some other of the circuits come on. Notice it went from 22 hours to 7 hours. Now,
Yep.
7 hours from right now, probably not going to get you through the night, right?
Yep.
But I don't know exactly what's on right now. So
So that turned on the game room and the theater room, and I know the game room was being used. The TV, the speakers in there, and the light and ceiling fan. And so it was probably pulling a decent amount. And so the good thing is I can have it be on for right now. And then whenever we wind down for the night, I can, pop it back into the other scene where it turns those circuits off.
and that's actually something that I was, considering as far as a recommendation. Again, we're trying to, trying to fine tune those screws. You probably want to have an overnight profile and
Yep.
call it just that,
Yep.
because your percentage difference during the day, your percentage difference during the night is going to be pretty different, right?
Yeah.
But like right before we go to bed, nobody's going to be up till 6 anyway, type thing. I would probably have, this is my overnight profile, and just keep it there. And then of course, if your battery gets low enough to where it's that 45 or 25, and you have another profile that might be a little tighter, it will go to that profile still and still protect your interests. But overnight, there's a big difference between, hey, people are up right now. They're in the game room, they're playing pool, and they're doing these other things. So I want them to be able to do that. Like that's some of the options that you have there. So that'd be one recommendation that I would definitely make.
Yep. Yeah. Makes sense.
So, uh, yeah, I guess as far as uh, like, there was there a high point for you today as you're going through this and you're seeing it work? And what's great is not noticing something's a real benefit, but was there any, like, was something that was really cool as it was happening today for you, other than it warned you, hey, we're switching profiles?
So there were a few cool things. One was whenever I initially turned off the grid, like did the manual switch to cut it off, like exactly like if a blackout, happened and we got no power coming in from the grid, no one noticed anything in the house. It was seamless. And that was one of the really big benefits that I was happy about whenever we, designed the system with the home grid batteries. I think it's a 5 millisecond
It's like 10 milliseconds. Yeah, the solar, like 10 milliseconds.
versus like a 30-second window that a backup generator has, because they have to realize that the grid has gone down and then they have to spin up the motor and then it starts powering the house, and people will notice that in the house. Like I would have had people complaining like, oh, my Xbox stopped working or my TV show just turned off. No one noticed anything. And that is what I was hoping for. And I'm glad it was exactly as smooth as that. And then another thing that has been really nice. My brother came over for a few hours today, and like we hung out and listen to music. And I was like, oh yeah, by the way, we are completely off grid. Like I've got the grid cut off. And he was like, wow, like that was pretty impressive. Like you don't even notice it.
Mhm.
And that's the type of experience that I wanted to have with this system that we ended up installing. I I wanted to have something in place where you don't even know whenever you are completely off grid. Like, oh, the grid went out? Huh, I had no idea. Like that is the type of experience that I want to have.
Now, and there's a couple things that you did that were a little extra. That you gave me a problem, right? You're like, well, hey, I noticed the cable boxes weren't doing. So we did add $50 parts to some parts of the house because 10 milliseconds somehow was not fast enough. So you did have the UPS center at the power sources
Yep.
there. And so I know that ended up helping you out a little bit, but I know professionally at the same time, you having this ability makes it so you're not going to miss work, which you having internet access and you not having interruptions and stuff is a big part of of how you serve your family and how you serve your clients. And so, I mean, I can see a lot of the advantages happening with that. So we talked about a lot of the good. We got to talk about just something that was a surprise that you didn't like as much, but you're kind of like, okay, well, this is good to know now. so that we're doing the simulation rather than experiencing it firsthand?
So, I think maybe the biggest thing today that was interesting, and part of this is on me with the way that I set up the scenes. I had it set it too high of a percentage, and so we
Right.
got home, and it's like, oh yeah, let's go to the game room, and my wife was like, huh, things aren't turning on here, and I was like, oh, I know exactly why. And the nice thing about that is one, I knew that it switched modes whenever it should have. So it's good to see that that happened. And then two, it was extremely easy to just get it back up and running. It wasn't like, oh, I gotta go through these 10 different menus and get something set up. It was just extremely straightforward to get the room powered back up and carry on like nothing happened.
That's excellent. No, and again, like you said, that's more of a that's why you want to do these simulations. We're going to be probably doing another simulation for a system we're installing today. We're about done with it. We got it. We probably are going to be done Tuesday, and then we'll do that one. And same situation. It's like, hey, you got to experience it. You got to see it and go, its percentage is a little high, or hey, I didn't make an overnight profile because that'll get me 10 hours. So right now, where it's saying 5 hours, it comes because depending on what's coming on right now, it's probably the upstairs HVAC unit. It's going up to 19 hours. It's going down to 5 hours. So with all that
Yeah,
play
yeah.
inside of it like that, once you have your overnight one, you're not going to have that variation really.
Mhm.
So you could be a little bit more comfortable, right now where people are still awake and still experiencing that. Um, as far as the changes, it sounds like to me the only two that I know of right now we're considering, and it sounds like you already done one, is you changed that 75% to what 45%. You said
Yep. Mhm.
okay, so I think that was a great idea. I don't even know when you're going to hit 45%. It's definitely going to be later, right?
Yep.
Whatever it is, it's
Yeah.
definitely going to be later.
And you know what so my idea with setting it to 45 is I don't want to be up there using the game room and then it goes and hits that whatever percentage I put it at. If I put it at like 62, like we
Right.
we would actually almost be there. We're at 64 right now.
There
And
you go.
so
Yep.
I didn't want to hit that. And so I was like, I'm going to bump it down, low enough that we won't hit it while we're using that area. And then if I remember, I can, manually put it in that next step down. But if I don't remember, it will go there automatically if charge gets low enough.
Exactly. Exactly. And then the other one, which I guess you could probably build on your own later, would be that overnight. I
Yep.
think that would be a great scene for you to build. Just hey, this is overnight. Nobody's around the house. The house is dead. Let's go ahead and conserve as much power as we need to. Let's make sure people are comfortable with the HVAC. But if I got plugs doing this and that and this, it just doesn't matter. It
Yep.
doesn't make sense to do it.
For sure.
So all right. Well, I know that I guess our plan tonight was to maybe do a tour of the system. Are you able to do that, or do you want to do that maybe tomorrow night? I'm gonna leave that part up to you to maybe show the install and the stuff that you had. But you deal with
Uh,
your choice. Which better?
I would say maybe tomorrow night would be good.
That's fine. But we're going to talk a little bit about the install because I know we've mentioned different manufacturers, different things. We've mentioned
Yep.
Solar-Ark here, Savant, HomeGrid, mentioned Kohler for the generator. And so with all those things, I want to kind of give an idea of, this is what we put together and this is how we put that together. And so, when people talk about their solar projects, the star is the system, right? The star is, hey, this is what I have that was installed in the house. But I know there are a few things in particular that you took away from the whole design process and the whole design platform that we did that you really appreciated. So, do you mind sharing a little bit about that experience before we
Sure.
jump
Yeah,
into?
yeah, yeah. Well, the first thing that I really enjoyed was the ability that you had whenever we started talking about this with the Aurora system.
Yeah,
You could see the satellite view of my house that showed the roof angles everywhere, and you could see exactly where the sun was going to be hitting all throughout the year, different seasons. And we could place the panels exactly in the optimal space. And I know I pushed back like, oh, what about these, more powerful panels? And you were like, well, while they're more powerful, they also have a bigger footprint. And for your roof, they don't, you're not able to optimize the larger amount of power that they can produce because you will have less panels on the roof. And so it was really nice to be able to walk through that and figure out like what's the best setup for my house, and then go from there to realize, okay, we think we're going to get this much production, more or less, and then how do we be able to harness that?
Hmm.
It's like, okay, well, there's a few different options with inverters, and from there, there's different options with batteries. And whenever we started discussing it, the throughput that the Solarks can do, um,
Now, are you talking about throughput as far as like the peak amperage that was available inside of
yep,
it? Yeah. Okay.
yep,
Yeah. Yep.
it's something that you can't get with most other inverters, especially whenever you get like the 215Ks, like the whole system setup with the 215Ks and the HomeGrid batteries, and allowing to, like, whenever we say if we need to go like grid down, everything is running. Pool is running, the dryer is running, every single circuit is doing work. Well, if we didn't have the solar inverters, we wouldn't be able to push that power to be able to not notice that we've gone off grid. Like, we would have to say like, oh, we've got to limit our circuits to be able to, keep things going. And that was one of the really, big wins that came with being able to choose Solar and the home grid setup.
Right. Well, yeah, no, and that's a good point. That's one thing that we deal with. That we have some, sometimes where folks get the 115K because the through on that, meaning what the grid capacitor on that is 200 amps, but its actual peak amperage for 10 seconds is 125 amps, and that sounds like a lot. But if you have a second HVAC unit like you do, and you have a dryer that you basically just succeeded that. You can't have the dryer on the same time the second HVAC unit comes on. And so you would literally have to say, hey, we need a dryer close down. And we're talking, during the day, full sun. So the power available to you allows you to get it. But because you're not able to harness it, it doesn't really matter what's available. It matters what you can actually produce. And so, no, that is something that we dealt with that, with the winter, the way that it is now. We have some people who had 115K, and we told them, hey, these are your limitations when you have that. And the challenge they're having is their emergency heat. A lot of those emergency heaters come on at under 30 degrees. And so the emergency heat comes on and the inverter overloads. And they go, well, I mean, what happened? I say, well, your emergency heat exceeded everything else. You passed that 12, especially at night. You exceeded the capability of the inverter, and they think that the sun is what dictates the capability, and it is to some degree, right? I mean, how much you bring in does, but if you can have all the power available to you, but if you ain't, it's like I got a Corvette out there with a, V10, doesn't matter, right? If I can't get the gas on all the way, if
Yeah.
it's not
Yep.
able to full, if I can't go into, fourth, fifth, sixth gear, it doesn't really matter how much
Yep.
it's available, how great the engine is.
Exactly.
So
Um, and what you were just describing with the emergency heater, I did experience something similar with my house. So my pool pump notices whenever the temperature gets close to freezing,
mhm.
and will turn on. And I've got the additional like water features, and it will start circulating water through those so that the pipes don't freeze.
Right, and that saves
And
you. I heard people three, four, five, $8,000 during the freezes because their pool could not circulate like that. The pumps broke, and so
yep.
you're saving yourself 8 grand, which by the way pays for the inverter. So like you're
Yeah.
you're saving yourself that money just for it to be able to do something like that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yep. And it's kind of an emergency mode, and so I didn't expect the pool pump to be on necessarily.
Hmm.
And if the inverter couldn't handle, you know, heavy night usage plus the pool pump running with the water feature, things could have gone sideways and I would have been scrambling trying to figure out what was going on. But since it can, it was not an issue at all, which was
Like
great.
you didn't even notice when it came on, other than like because you have this, you can see that your usage went way up, right? Your consumption went way up, and you're like, oh, what's that? Oh, well, that was probably the pool just cutting
Yep,
itself on.
yep,
So it's just you notice it because you got the data, but not as far as function or just your day to day.
yep, for sure.
So no, that's excellent. And then you mentioned the home grid battery, which I mean that's one of the big advantages of the Solar-Ark. It is battery agnostic. It doesn't really care. You can use a lead acid battery if you want to with it. All it cares about is whether it's 48 volts, and it can communicate with it. But of all the battery manufacturers available, we picked HomeGrid. What was it about the HomeGrid Stack series that really stuck out for you?
So
They
there's
like,
multiple things. One was, the solar insure.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, which we'll talk about more later. But no, I'm a big. I preach that thing like I'm. Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, that was one really big aspect. The other was how modular the system is. And
Mhm.
I really enjoyed that. And so, I've got three stacks, and each module in the stack is 4.8, and it can be expanded in the future, no, like very easily.
So wait a minute. So you actually have three stacks of four, which each module of the four is 4.8.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
So
Yep.
yeah, each stack is like 19.2 or something. Is that?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
correct. Yep. Um,
Sorry. Go ahead.
And yeah, thanks for clarifying that. And then like it can be expanded extremely easily.
Mhm.
Alternatively, if something was to go sideways on one of those modules, since it is a modular setup, it can easily be debugged, disassembled if needed, remove that module, replace it with a new one. Versus if it wasn't like that, you could have to replace a whole stack,
Right.
if it was, not designed correctly. So that was another one. And then on top of that, one of the really nice benefits was the heated modules. And so, we've gotten a few cold snaps down in Texas, the Snowmageddon,
Mhm.
a few
Right.
years ago, and that was like a week or longer without power and very cold temperatures. And my batteries are in the garage. And so, if you get into a situation where it's very cold for an extended period of time, it could start affecting the batteries and not just affecting how they perform at that point, which it will do. It
Right.
could permanently damage the batteries to where now you're dealing with a product that can't perform how it should because it got damaged from the cold. And with having the heated battery modules, it completely alleviates that concern.
No, no, absolutely. I mean, so that's something again we're dealing with throughout the country right now. We're receiving those calls, and you could tell somebody that, hey, under 30 degrees, you're going to have this challenge. But when people are in a stressful situation, they've lost power. You can tell them all you want, in the moment what's happening, but in the moment that it's affecting them at a high level, they're in crisis mode. They're like, hey, what's happening? What's happening? I said, well, this is something we discussed, and yeah, so I know exactly what you're talking about with the heated part of that, because with Texas, you guys you're probably more used to the cold now than you were 4 years ago, but still that would not be your normus operandi. Is that how you say it? I think where cold is something you guys would consider being a factor with solar or anything really, and so yeah,
Yeah.
you're covered no matter what with that.
Yeah, and it's kind of the thing you don't know until it hits you kind of thing. So like and you brought it up and we talked about it during the design phase and it's so nice now knowing that it's not a concern that I have to worry about.
Right.
If like you didn't bring it up or I didn't think about it, and we didn't go that route, I probably wouldn't even know until things have already gone sideways and I'm in a bad situation. So not only are we in a like emergency power situation, it's extreme cold. Well, now I'm realizing that my batteries are getting too cold and they're getting damaged. And so I am in a even worse position than I thought I was. So it's so nice that that is not a concern that I have to even think about anymore.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And then, when we moved to that, the other big chunk. So we've got our, our Solar-Ark, we've got our HomeGrid batteries, and another thing about the HomeGrid batteries was, I mean, there's only a couple of manufacturers out there that can actually deliver the peaks that Solar-Ark has, right? Because Solar-Ark has its own limitations, and it's, I should say it has limitations, but a lot of times it's caused by the batteries because they're not able to fully perform and fully feed it the way that we needs to with the three stacks and how we did in parallel. Don't have to get into the semantics of it, but we were able to help the Solar not be limited by those limitations, as it were. So, but the Savant system here too, and we I think this was actually the Savant system. The thing that's been the star of the last 2 days is probably what we went back and forth about the most during that whole process, because it was like, well, like I can manually do this, and I like what was it like about the Savant that really stuck out to you to say, it's going to be worth, having that as an add-on with it. And it sounds like to me, of all the things that you did, this was like, I don't know if you would even be as happy as you are with that, like even remotely close to as happy as you are with that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say that it was like the icing and the cherry on the cake. Like it, the ease of use of the UI in the Savant app is really nice. Having the ability to get fine details on every single circuit in my house, being able to set the scenes to where they automatically like switch over and start reducing what is pulling energy in my house is huge. And then additionally, like it's uh it's the most sexy part about the system.
Right.
Like the app is really cool, but also having the battery modules in the garage, like anytime I'm, going out in the garage, I take a look to see like, oh, how are the circuits doing? And you can, since it's got screens, you can put on exactly what the name is. And so it feels as high tech as the system really is. Whereas if you didn't have that, like, yes, the home grid looks cool and looks nice, and the Solarks look, nice, but the Savant puts it over the top and it takes it into the real futuristic, like what you imagine building whenever you're building a system that can fully take care of your home the way that I was hoping to build.
Yeah, and and for folks that don't really know a lot about the Savant, and the opportunity that it brings, one of the biggest concerns that people have that we're noticing is when you have multiple manufacturers, you have multiple apps, and so a lot of people are worried about different controlling different things and getting different reporting for different things, and that integration. That's how I actually found out about it. Like I knew HomeGrid was the best battery to because it was self heating and modular, and it was able to provide Solar the power. I knew that was the right battery to go with that system, and I knew Solar was the right one because you had two inverters, but we could actually stack up to 8 of them. So if you had a home that had a 400 amp, right? We could do 400 amps, not a problem. 600 amps, no problem. And
Yeah, yeah.
you can't say that with anybody else, right? Just say, 600 amps, no problem. And so that brought it, but the Savant, because, a lot of people are concerned with having to touch too many tools or learn too many tools. It really brought all that together for a lot of folks. Like I said, it simplified something that could be a lot more complicated if we allowed it to be.
Yep, for sure. And not only that, like what we showed, earlier, like just going in and changing the scenes, just boom, just extremely simple. And setting up the scenes was extremely simple. And One thing that I'm looking forward to in the future is continuing to evolve my system to meet my needs more effectively. Like I realize that, oh yeah, like the 65% or 75%, whatever I put, the turn off the game room and stuff like that, that's probably
The
too much.
trigger. Yep.
So I'll move that trigger down, to a lower percentage, and then I have those other scenes that I have in mind that I haven't built yet, but being able to have that freedom and just tweak the dials, and then maybe if our like our lifestyle changes a little bit and we're using more power at different times, I can just go in and tweak the settings a little bit. It's extremely easy to get the desired result with minimal effort, which is great.
Right. And then one thing that I think you've been spoiled with a little bit that a lot of people wouldn't realize is, with your traditional inverters, there is a 5 minute to 10 minute delay on its reporting. The reason why is because it sings out, a specific report, and there's just so much bandwidth necessary to do it real time that a lot of your inverter manufacturers won't allow that to happen, just because they don't want to take in all that data consistently. I mean, I couldn't imagine what the cost associated would be. And at this point, because you can see real time, I mean, within a couple seconds, something cuts on, something cuts off. This is how much I'm really using. You never really were limited by, hey, my system's saying it's doing this, and it's like, oh no, just wait 5 minutes, wait 10 minutes. I think that would have drove you crazy if that was my answer to you
Yeah.
consistently, which is you just got to wait for the inverter manufacturer to give you the right data.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like I'm building a state-of-the-art, really cool, cutting edge system, and it shouldn't take 5 to 10 minutes to tell me what's going on. And that's one of the really good things with the Savant app is how it's pretty much instant. And it was really cool, actually. The other night, whenever the football game was going on, it was halftime, and I was showing one of my guests, the setup, and I was showing him the power modules out in the garage, and I was like, oh yeah, if you see here, the microwave just bumped up to like 1.5 kilowatts, and I was like, someone must be microwaving something. He was like, oh, I bet that's my wife microwaving some pizza. She probably got hungry, and we walked in, and she was, munching on pizza, and he was like, oh, I saw that, like happen like instantly, like in the garage. And so that was a pretty cool example of the live updates that you get with the Savant system.
That's excellent. That's excellent. And then the last thing that was part of the system, and it's you've already taken the icing and the cherry part of it. So I don't know what you're going to add this. Maybe this is a like a
Sprinkles.
coffee side, but like return on investment, like ROI was a big part of our conversation as well. And we were trying to find that balance between, all right, I need to be comfortable, but this needs to make fiscal sense. Like, I can't allow my comfort to override my fiscal sense, but at the same time, I can't allow my fiscal to cause me to not be comfortable. And one thing that really brought that home was what we mentioned earlier, is that solar insure, making it so
Hmm.
that, the most important elements of the system, including leaks on your roof, right? Because that's cost us down the road. Like
Yep.
all those things factored into that. So you didn't even know about solar insure before we talked about it, I don't think. Is that right?
That's exactly right. I wasn't aware of it, and I'm glad that you brought it up and we were able to chat about it. And it wasn't like, oh, just do this and listen to me, like believe me, trust me, it's this. Like you pointed me to the documentation, and I read about it, and it's so nice that it's um, removed from the individual companies that are manufacturing the products. Uh, so if we are in a day and age where there's a lot of companies in the solar industry that are popping up and maybe not approaching how they handle, being a productive business the best, and they may not exist in, a year or 5 years. And that was one of the really big selling points with the solar insure is that it removes the large concern that that could happen, and you're completely covered with the solar insurer, independent of that aspect.
Well, and not, not that I don't have any intention of not being in this business. I absolutely love this industry, but it's not just the manufacturers; it's me as well. Like if for some reason I decide to hang my spurs, say, all right, man, we're out of this thing. You don't have to worry about, hey, Fred, well, you can't get out. You're covering this warranty for 10, 20, 30 years. And there are a lot of people, and I'm not going to mention the names, but we know of companies that are not here. That, interestingly enough, companies that I think you actually had come by the house. I think one of the tickets, correct me if I'm wrong, SunPower. Didn't you talk to SunPower?
I did.
Yeah. So SunPower, I think by September or August of this year or last year, they were no more. And so, and they were touting the 20-year or 30-year warranty on it. And
Yep. Yep.
so, when all those people heard SunPower was out and they were realized they're gone, their warranty's gone, you could hear that, hey, Fred hung his spurs because, he just got too old to do this. Though again, I don't know how old I have to be. It's not gonna happen soon. Uh, but you don't, that's not
But
gonna
to
tell
be
you.
honest, I don't care because I have solar insurer.
Right, exactly. So no, I agree with you, and that's one reason why we want to make sure, our installers and all of our partners, like this is something that we absolutely need. And so I guess
Hey,
last, okay,
it's a huge investment,
right.
and you want to make sure that investment is covered and is going to be able to produce what you're paying for in the long run. And if you don't have something like solar insure and there's the continual churn in the industry, you may be left high and dry, and your investment is wasted.
Yeah, compromised for sure. Yep.
So, yeah, that was a huge selling point with the solar insure.
Right. So, and then not that I want to keep you up all night. I mean, what's great is, other than you having to do just a little bit of tuning, it sounds like we're excited about the next 24 hours.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
and tomorrow night's going to be even, it's going to be even cooler because it's going to be a full 24 hours. You're not going to be able to charge overnight. Like there's nothing that you're going to be able to do. You're just going to see the system work itself overnight. But is there anything else specifically about like your install that you wanted to highlight that we hadn't talked about yet? Like, so was there anything that you could point out that said, you know what, hey, this also was something special that I just wanted to share?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. There, whenever we first started talking, I described my ideal setup, which we actually ended up building. And it more or less boiled down to not having to rely on one source of backup power.
Mhm.
And that means I don't want just solar. I don't want just generator. Being able to have a system where they're both integrated and they are not independent systems. They can run independently, but they can also communicate. And the generator can cut on and charge the batteries. And that also gives you still the like very minimal millisecond, switch over to backup versus just having a generator. So I have an extremely high level of confidence that my house is going to have power regardless of what's going on. If we get in a situation where gas line is down and it's cloudy for, days on end, I think that there's going to be larger, concerns going on in the world than being able to keep everyone like the most comfortable at home. And so it's extremely nice being able to know that I've got a multi-tiered approach to my backup power.
Mhm.
Sure that everyone in my household is comfortable.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And so I no, Jeremy, you have a big 24 hours ahead of you. So I'm not gonna to focus and keep you away from your family any longer. I think you want to go play some pool with everybody. They probably wonder where you are right now. But tomorrow night, just to remind you, of course, we'll go over the different things that we talked about and see if there's anything else that came up over 24 hours. We definitely want to fine tune and see what your experiences are. But you had mentioned yesterday, if you won't mind scrolling down a little bit on your screen, you had mentioned yesterday about the scenes here and how when you touch the scenes, you
Uh-huh.
don't see them there. And so for folks that see this now, again, this is something interesting about the Savant system. There are two sets of scenes. There is an off grid, which we have to do with the Power and Light app, which is what Jeremy's been playing with up to this point. This is, the ability for your scenes to be while you are on grid, and the little plus mark there. We're going to add some scenes for, during the day, during the night, just so that honestly you could use the Savant to save money, because at night, if you have that profile where you're cutting off certain things, while the grid is up, just so that you're not consuming as much power, or while you're on vacation or while nobody's at the house. I mean, there's all kinds of things that you have the ability to do with these scenes. And so we're going to go ahead and put together a book of scenes for you. So a little homework, during the day, right? Is all right. Well, what kind of scenes would I want to put together? It's very much like what we did already, so it's not going to
Yep.
be difficult for you to do. But that'll make it so that once we get back on grid, you got these scenes as well, and you're able to go right back into get the benefit from that. And then we're also going to do some generator work tomorrow as well. We'll talk about the generator a little bit, talk about the generator integration, which you've already touched on. But we need to go into the app for Solar-Ark to set our triggers and different
Yep.
things. And I would like to. This is the one that I don't want to say brings me stress, but this is where it gets a little bit more complicated. I think we may cut off the PV. I mean, if everything goes well the next 24 hours, tomorrow night, if we go ahead and make those settings right, we may want to cut off the PV just to say, hey, we've got cloudy days and the generator had to cut on. And we want to go ahead and see that happen so that we know that you're covered no matter what with it with your simulation. So,
Yeah. One of the fortunate things, I guess, for this test is I think tomorrow's supposed to be pretty overcast. So I
so
think we will be able to really go through the situation where, there's not enough PV coming in to, power the house and keep the batteries charged. So,
So no, that's excellent. 'Cause that's what we want to see, right? We want to see, yeah, because you will get cloudy days. With Beryl, I don't know how long the clouds, we're in that Houston area, Katy area for Beryl, but if you didn't have any PV for a couple of days, you want that generator just to supplement. Supplements for you're not gonna have a generator on for 24 hours. You have it on just long enough to power the house, recharge the battery a little bit, and it's gonna sit back and say, okay, well, I'll wait for PV to come out, and if it doesn't, all right, let me go ahead and give you a little bit more.
yep.
Saves the life of your generator, saves fuel. There's a lot of great benefits that come from that integration with it. So we're going to work on all that. And then you think we're going to be able to get a tour of what you got there too? Set that up
Yeah.
for tomorrow night too? No, that'd be great.
Yeah, for sure.
That'd be great. So, all right, man. Well, anything else that you want to chat about? I can't tell you enough again how much I appreciate your time. It's so much fun. This is my solar nerd coming out. So much fun to be able to talk about this stuff and to see it work the way it's designed, right? So, but is there anything else you wanted to say before we head out for the
No, I think that's probably it for tonight. Can go into more detail on things, tomorrow night whenever we chat.
No, absolutely. So, Jeremy, again, pleasure as always. Enjoy your family. We'll talk tomorrow night, my friend.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.